probably the number one Achilles heel of a premium finance arrangement is the lack of full disclosure to the client in regards to collateral. Collateral is the name of the game in most premium financing cases that could potentially go sideways. So we're going to talk about the ugly truth about collateral that no one's talking about, and that is how to properly calculate collateral. I'll show you the wrong way to calculate collateral first. Let's say you want to calculate the collateral that the client was going to have to post in policy year 6. Here's what a lot of firms do, and I've seen this in their proposals, is they will show year 6's policy cash surrender value. This is an actual case, actually, that was brought to me where I looked at another premium financing intermediary's proposal because the agent wanted to know what I thought about the construction here. So this was the policy surrender value in year 6 as illustrated in the carrier illustration, $5.5 million. Most lenders will credit 95% of the cash surrender value towards their collateral. And so that's the discounted cash surrender value. Most firms will compare that to the outstanding loan balance in year 6. In this case, it was $5.4 million. And so if we look at those numbers there, the discounted cash surrender value, we minus out the loan balance, that showed a shortfall gap of $204,000. So that's the way a lot of firms will calculate it. I'm here to tell you this is completely inaccurate and far understated in terms of the actual shortfall. So here's what I mean by this, okay? First question I have is, when is year 6's collateral requirement calculated by the lender? So in other words, when year 6 is about to roll around, the lender is now going to look at the policy value and they're going to do their collateral calculation. That calculation is done prior to policy year 6 starting, right? It's done before the year 6 premium is funded during the last month of year number 5. So they're going to look at the policy surrender value right before year 6 starts. Now, at that point, has year 5's index credit hit yet? Well, of course not, right? It's going to credit typically 2 to 3 weeks after the end of policy year 5, about 2 to 3 weeks after policy year 6 starts. At that point, has policy year 6's index credit hit yet? Well, of course not, right? It's going to credit about 13 months later. So basically, if we look at how a lot of these firms are calculating the collateral, they're assuming year 6's surrender value. So if we look at the top of the screen there, year 6's surrender value at $5.5 million assumes that policy year 5's index credit has hit, which has not hit in reality. And it also assumes that policy year 6's index credit hit, where it has certainly not hit yet. So if they're using the end of year 6 surrender value after policy year 5 and policy year 6's index has hit, then this $204,000 of shortfall gap is drastically understated. Drastically understated. So here's how it actually should be calculated. Okay, this is the proper collateral calculation for policy year 6. The way we look at it is we look at the end of year 4, right? The end of year policy accumulated value in this particular case would have been $3.6 million based on a certain index credit. Again, we're calculating for the collateral in policy year 6. Okay, so we're taking the end of policy year 4's accumulated value. Then we are adding in the policy year 5's premium minus policy year 5's charges plus policy year 6's premiums minus policy year 6's charges minus policy year 6's surrender charges. And that calculation right there is going to give us what the lender is going to want to see as far as what the policy surrender value would be if and when they fund policy year 6's premium. Now, in reality, at the time that the lender is going to do the collateral calculation. Typically, the lenders are going to request an in-force illustration be run with a zero index credit right before they fund in each year. So that methodology is basically the same thing as what we are projecting initially using this collateral calculation I'm showing you on the screen here. Okay, so the minute that the bank funds year 6's premium, remember, the end of policy year 5's index credit has not hit yet, nor has the end of policy year 6's index credit hit yet. So this is the proper way to calculate what the surrender value is going to be the minute that bank funds the premium. This is what the actual surrender value calculation, that's how the lender is going to calculate that. Actually, they're going to discount at 5%, right? So they're going to take 95% of this projected value, and that's what they're going to base their collateral calculation off of. If we then look at year 6's loan balance, after year 6's premium is funded, all right, that's what the lender is going to look at there, right? They're going to back out the discounted surrender value calculation from the loan balance, and that's going to create the shortfall. Okay, so the actual shortfall based on the lender's calculation is going to be $908,000, not the $200,000 and change that most premium financing firms are going to show in their proposal. So here's an example of this. I actually removed all the branding and everything. Again, this is not an attack on the premium financing firm that put this together, but this is an example of how inaccurate these calculations can be. There is year 6's loan balance assumption in their proposal. If we look at the gap shortfall, the gap shortfall is showing $550,000, and then the estimated gap collateral based, I'm assuming they're basing this on the client posting securities. The advance rate on this, assuming that reduction or discounting based on the type of collateral, is a 43% advanced rate. Again, these are not my numbers. This is purely based off of what I saw in this competitor's proposal. They're estimating that the gap collateral in year 6 is going to be $1.26 million. That is so far off, it's not even close. So the actual shortfall is going to be $908,000. And with the advanced rate, that is, and I'm using their advanced rate. This is not my advanced rate. This is their illustrated advanced rate. The actual gap shortfall is going to be a little over $2 million. So you got to think about this, right? If that other proposal, if the year 6 collateral assumption was stated that the shortfall is to be $550,000 when the actual shortfall is $908,000, that's a difference of $350,000, almost $358,000 of difference of understated shortfall. But it gets even worse because that other proposal from that other firm showed that the collateral requirement in year 6 was going to be $1.26 million. The actual collateral requirement, I should say, would be over $2 million, almost $2.1 million. That's an $819,000 difference in collateral projection for policy year 6. So the question I have for you as the advisor, how would you feel if you had to tell your client they have to post $819,000 more collateral than what your original illustration showed? That is a very, very tough conversation to have. So when you're going to do any sort of premium financing projection with a client, you have to make sure that the so-called premium financing expert that you're working with, that's putting together the premium finance proposition, actually knows how to properly calculate the collateral. A lot of times, this whole thing about, well, we want to show the minimum collateral that we possibly can so it'll look better because it's easier to sell. I'm telling you right now, that mindset, that philosophy is what's going to get you in trouble when it comes to premium financing. So many of these firms understate the amount of collateral that the client is going to actually have to post. In a Lionsmark Capital report, we not only show what the projected collateral requirement is going to be, assuming that the policy receives the index credit that's illustrated in the carrier illustration, we also show what that collateral expectation would be during the worst 40-year period out of 121 different 40-year historical periods that our software analyzes. Because we want to show the client, look, there could be a range of potential collateral requirement that you may have to post. I would much rather show them a depiction that is literally the worst 40-year period out of 121 different historical 40-year periods, show them those numbers in addition to a quote-unquote rosier outcome using a positive static index credit that the carrier illustration shows. So we're always going to show client, again, truthful mathematical outcomes in various arrangements. Again, I like the worst 40-year period. I think it's a really responsible thing to show a client. Again, Landsmark Capital is the only premium financing intermediary that has software that can actually model that type of back-tested performance, actual performance, historical performance. So as we wrap up here, look, this is how you feel when you close a big premium financing case. You're all excited, but then you realize the collateral calculation was done wrong, and you have to tell your client that you messed up. So a lot of times I'll have advisors say, well, I talked to another premium financing firm and they'll do it for a lower split than what you'll do it for, right? They're cheaper than you. Look, Landsmark Capital is definitely not the cheapest premium financing intermediary firm in the business. We're probably one of the more expensive ones in terms of the split that we charge to model this and to manage the loan on a move forward basis. But whenever someone says that my competition can do it cheaper, oftentimes this is what cheaper looks like. The problem is that you don't know that the quality of what you're getting is far less valuable and could in some cases get you in trouble. You're not going to know that until several years later. So I understand when an agent says, I don't want to give up such a big split, so-and-so will do it cheaper. Will you do it for cheaper? My answer is no, because if I did it for cheaper, then I would not be able to do all this back-tested work to create all of the safeguards that are going to protect your client from getting into a bad situation in the future. I can't do that for that lower split. Now, if you want to work with a premium financing firm that will do it for a lower split, but will not do the back testing, will not do the stress testing, doesn't understand how to properly calculate collateral, you're putting yourself at risk, huge risks, for both chargebacks and lawsuits. I mean, hopefully, I would like to think that most advisors have a conscience and have a moral and ethical compass and live by a code of honor to want to do the right thing for the client just because it's the right thing for the client. But in addition to that, as an advisor, as an agent, if you're working with the wrong premium financing intermediary that's painting these rosy pictures, you are going to be subject to chargebacks if the client decides to pull out of this thing. And you might end up being the center of a lawsuit, just like that Forbes article and the Wall Street Journal article alluded to. That's a 7-figure lawsuit. Again, hopefully your moral and ethical compass would just want to do the right thing. But again, in addition to that, the personal risks that you're going to incur if you're working with a premium financing intermediary that's not doing this properly, the risk is huge. So we always want to account for black swan events. A black swan event is basically an unpredictable or unforeseen event, typically one with extreme consequences. So what are the black swan events that could occur in a premium financing arrangement? Well, one of them we're already experiencing right now, which is borrowing rate increases. I have seen and heard of a lot of premium finance policies that were done just a couple years ago that are now starting to blow up because borrowing rates were so low 2 years ago. And now that borrowing rates are increasing because some of these premium financing arrangements were built where the client was accruing some or all of the interest. Well, now all of a sudden they're accruing double and triple what they expected to because borrowing rates have doubled and tripled since a couple years ago. So again, you want to make sure that the premium financing arrangement is done responsibly, not just conservatively, but responsibly. Hopefully both. We do both. Another black swan event could be poor policy performance. Again, in the last couple years, stock market has been up and then it crashed. And so depending on when the index window came due, when the segment came due, some of these policies are getting zeros. And based on the poor sequence of returns, meaning of the first 2 years of the premium financing arrangement, the client was getting a zero index credit at a time where borrowing rates are increasing. That's a problem, a huge problem. Again, we talked about poor sequence of returns. And then if the client is having cash flow challenges, that could produce another problem. That's why you want to make sure your client has a net worth and the liquidity to be able to withstand some of these black swan events. If your client has a lot of cash flow, but they don't have a lot of liquidity, if and when the borrowing rates increase and they have to come to the table with more out of pocket, and their cash flow cannot afford the higher out of pocket that is going to be required, now your client's in deep doo-doo. if they just accrue the excess interest due, which if they're wealthy enough, perhaps they're able to do it, but then they got to post more collateral. And again, if they don't have the proper collateral that the lender is going to require, again, the whole house of cards comes tumbling down. So these are the 4 challenges. And if all 4 of these challenges happen at the same time, the compounded outcome of these risks is going to put the client in a bad situation. Again, that's why our proprietary backtesting software is so vital if you're going to entertain premium financing. Our proprietary backtesting software, again, we model 121 different historical 40-year periods of actual S&P 500 performance. We apply the carrier's floor and cap, as well as any multiplier bonuses or multiplier charges that come along with that, as well as the standard charges that exist in the life insurance policy. And then our proprietary backtesting software builds a proxy for that policy. It's not the actual policy, that would be non-compliant. We build a proxy, in other words, a hypothetical synthetic asset that behaves very similar to the real world product. In most cases, that real world product that we're building the proxy for is an IUL. So we build that proxy, we run it through our backtesting software, and we really want to focus on the worst 40-year period out of these 121 different historical 40-year periods. We also have the ability to model historical borrowing rates compared to historical index performance. Again, I won't get into the details of this particular topic right here. We do have a recorded webinar on our website. If you go to our website, landsmarkcapital.com, and if you click on webinars, you can page down and watch the webinar that I did regarding rising borrowing rates. Really, really great information for you there. Great educational tool. You can even share that with your clients. Very, very important in a rising interest rate environment. Our proprietary backtesting software will also compare a non-insurance based investment account. Again, this is like a fictitious equities and bonds account. And we can compare that to the cash value accumulation, assuming the same index credit in both models. And then we can also run a back test and show the best 40-year period and the worst 40-year period out of these 121 different historical 40-year periods that we model. And we can show both the outcomes in the non-insurance-based investment account and the proxy for the premium financed design. And then we also can show a comparison of a non-finance policy to a premium financed policy. Same client outlay in both scenarios, and we can show the comparison between the two. We can not only show the as illustrated version using the carrier numbers, we can also build a proxy for both the non-finance policy and the finance policy and show best 40-year period and worst 40-year period in both of those proxies. Again, non-financed versus financed. And then lastly, we also have the ability in all of our proposals to show an investment portfolio with life insurance and also without life insurance, so that they can see the true after fee, after tax net values of both. This is extremely valuable if it is a death benefit focused case and they are using the life insurance as an estate planning tool to pay estate taxes. A lot of folks will say, I don't know if I want to spend that much money on this stupid life insurance policy. Well, what we show is the exact same investment portfolio and then peeling out a very small amount, relatively speaking, of that exact same investment account to pay the interest on the premium finance life insurance policy. And so it's really showing them you can either do nothing, right, and keep all of your money in your estate in your investment portfolio, or you can peel a little bit out of your investment portfolio into an islet outside of the estate, and then we'll show them the after-tax net result of their investment portfolio without any life insurance versus their investment portfolio plus the life insurance death benefit tax-free outside of the estate. Extremely, extremely valuable. As we wrap up here, this is our website, landsmarkcapital.com. If you go ahead and click on that video right there, I'm hovering over, you'll see tons of testimonials from advisors and CPAs, et cetera, that we work with, or you can click on About Us at the top, and you can page down. You can watch the same montage of testimonial videos, and then you can also watch all these different interviews with advisors, CPAs, attorneys that we've worked with, and they share their experiences that they've had working with me and my firm, Landsmark Capital. So as we wrap up here, don't make the mistake of over-promising and under-delivering by working with the wrong premium financing intermediary. You're going to put your client and yourself in a compromising position, which, again, it's just not worth it. It just is not worth it. Do it properly. We take great measures in our premium financing designs to safeguard the client as much as humanly possible from the risks that we discussed in today's webinar. And we take that responsibility very, very seriously. So if you'd like to discuss a potential premium financing case with me, go to our website at landsmarkcapital.com, and you can click on Proposal Request at the very top of the homepage. And my office will reach out to you and schedule a private Zoom call with me personally. Hope you found this webinar to be valuable for both you and your practice, and I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. All right, have a great day.